On this episode of Elon Phoenix Weekly, we take a look at a former Elon athlete who's now in the coaching world.
We'll talk with a TV director about NHL bubble broadcasts.
We'll check out some TV ratings.
Get some reaction to the initial shutdown of sports and the effects it may have.
New season of Elon Phoenix Weekly. Let's roll. Welcome to an all-new season of Elon Phoenix Weekly. I'm Talia Lundquist.
We're so glad you could join us.
Now, this semester has changed a lot for most of us. We're still committed to bringing you all the new sports stories that we can.
Talia, you and I both know Elon has some superior athletes, from those winning CAA conference titles to being drafted in the pros. But then there's others who decide to continue their passions by mentoring others to pursue their potential. Let's take a look at a former Elon athlete who was previously coaching overseas until he unfortunately had to return to the U.S. due to COVID, where he's now helping others with mental health.
Hey everybody and welcome. I'm here with a special guest, Sam Eisenstadt, an Elon football alum, graduated in 2019 with an environmental science degree, has also spent time abroad in Sweden coaching football, went to UC Davis as a quality control coach on the defensive side, and now is back home in New Jersey as a high school football coach. Well, hey Sam, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on.
Any thing going on with the pandemic? We're just checking in on everybody, former athletes, just to see what's going on and how y'all are doing.
Things with the pandemic, I mean, it's been crazy because I was in Sweden coaching football, and the pandemic definitely sidetracked that. So I left mid-February for Sweden, and that was a cool experience. I was going to be the defensive coordinator. I was the defensive coordinator, and then I was there for just over a month, and that's when all this stuff really picked up with the virus, and my family just went crazy. They're like, you have to come home. And I tried to fight it for like about 2 weeks, but after 2 weeks, they came out with that advisory. That was like the most serious one. And so after about a month, I came back home, and I've been doing well during the pandemic, just making a lot of time for some self-care, making sure I meditate, journal, because it's some crazy times right now. So just taking care of my mental health, and things are going really well right now. I can add another thing. So over quarantine, after I got back from Sweden, I was trying to find something to do with my time, and I decided to make an Instagram account called Live and Learn. And basically, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's just a community I tried to start where people can openly talk about their struggles. And struggles can range from getting an injury on the football field to mental health. Struggle is a really broad term, so that's why I wanted to use the word struggle. Because at the end of the day, maybe one person deals with depression, maybe one person deals with anxiety, maybe one person has dealt with a torn ACL. But at the end of the day, we've all struggled. Like, everybody has struggled. I think if we can just come to terms with that and understand that we all struggle in one form or another.
And so you went back to New Jersey now to coach. How would you say like you're mentoring the up and coming potential collegiate athletes and honestly potentially professional?
I've done a lot of thinking about this, and I just think there's two ways to coach. You can either coach through fear or you can coach through love. And it's a lot easier to coach through fear. And I've been around a lot of coaches that just scream and yell, and they instill fear into their players. And yes, the players listen, but are the players playing loose? Are they having fun? And are they confident in their ability? I would say that not all the time, because if you're getting screamed at and yelled at, you're probably not having the best time on the field. And like, I really think you play your best when you're having a good time and you're feeling confident out there. So that's just how I try to coach. I just try to be light with it. I try to remind myself that, you know, this is a game. And that's really how I approach football. I just try to come from as a friend and be supportive. And just like you said, I try to tell the guys the things I wish I heard when I was in their position.
What is the end goal for you?
I don't even know how far I want to continue coaching. I don't know if I want to make it like a career for my entire life, because you can talk to the coaches at Elon or any college coaches. It is a job and it's 24/7, and these guys hardly get to see their families. And outside of their families, they can't really have any hobbies or anything like that. For me, I want to be able to have that flexibility and that freedom to have hobbies, to be with my children one day. Don't have children yet. Gonna wait a couple years. But yeah, to have that freedom. So really, one of the reasons I got into coaching is to just work on coaching, but not necessarily football. For me, I have a huge passion. I have the environmental, but I also have the mental health passion. So for me, I'd like to be like a life coach and hopefully a public speaker one day. Hopefully one day soon. But coaching is just an avenue for me to work on public speaking, leadership, a couple of different things that I can really focus on that will help me in other aspects of my life. And yeah, it's just crazy, man. It's crazy how life works, but I don't know exactly what I'll be doing, but I definitely want to just be helping people.
Wow, that was really inspirational to hear, considering everything else going on in the world today.
You're very right, Taylor. And when we come back, we'll hear from an old friend on what he thinks of the initial shutdown of sports.
We know times are crazy in this world, but in this exclusive interview with the director of the Carolina Hurricanes, he provides us with some knowledge on how to get in and stay in the industry.
Ready 6, take 6. Ready 1, take 1. Ready 2, take 2. Ready 5, ready 5, take 5.
When you step inside television truck, the atmosphere is as exciting and energetic as the game you're seeing on your screen.
Take 3. Ready, 8. Stay tight, 8. Ready, 8. Take 8.
For Paul Hemming, his original dream of commentating about the excitement on the screen switched early in his career.
Rob, ready, 8. Take 8.
When I first got into college, I wanted to be a commentator. I wanted to be on air, the face that you saw on TV. But when I got my internship and I actually got into working on real TV shows, I would have to take 6 coffees and creamers and stir sticks and stuff out to the TV truck. And the first time I got out there, I got inside the TV truck and I was just blown away by what happens inside the TV truck. And I was like, all of a sudden I was like, I don't want to be a commentator. I don't want to be the guy on the camera. I want to be the guy behind the camera, telling the guy on the camera what to say, how long he has to say it, where he's going to say it, what it's going to look like when he says it. And so at that point, I wasn't sure if it was a producer or director that I wanted to be, but I changed my mind and I wanted to be a director.
In Canada, Chopper, as Hemming is known, was a part of a national broadcast for TSN. He often had to make quick decisions to tell ever-changing stories of a game.
The producer and the director work together as a team. From my standpoint, from a director's standpoint, I've got everything. I've got the sequence in my head, in terms of show the goalie, show the coach that was scored against, show the goal scorer, show the crowd. And I'm basically cutting live shots to fill the time till we get to the replay. Producer makes, as you saw in that video, makes an instantaneous call to say, no, we're not going anywhere until we see the goalie exchange. There's no time now at that point for me to go, okay, rip up plan A, now we're going to plan B. So it all happens in a millisecond. It's adapt and overcome at the highest level, and it's reaction speed like you've never seen before.
After a few decades of working in Canada, Hemming transitioned to a different but equally challenging role with the Carolina Hurricanes.
In Canada, I worked on national broadcasts, which are completely different than regional broadcasts, which is what I'm working with now on Fox Sports Carolinas. National broadcasts, you do a game of the week, you're kind of a hired gun. You have sort of all week to prepare for one game. There's many, many people that are involved in the show that sort of hand you all the homework that you need for each show. When I got to Carolina, it was completely different. It was like, all this stuff we're doing, you're responsible for it. You're responsible for laying out the technical plan. You're responsible for, checking in with the engineers. You're responsible for helping out with transition and the telestrator and all these things that I was never part of before. So in fact, it made me a better director.
Hemming also has a robust social media presence on Instagram and an exciting podcast.
When he first started talking to me about podcasts, I didn't even know what a podcast was. I mean, I think I saw the app on my iPhone, but I really wasn't sure what it was. I definitely didn't listen to any podcasts. One of the things about our industry is, like, after all those shows that we do and the stressful moments that you see and stuff, all these great stories would come out. But they were always just in our sort of brotherhood of TV, sports TV type people, and they're actually really interesting stories. And the episodes run, anywhere between 40 to 50 minutes long. And it's really just an entertaining look at behind the scenes in sports television. People are enjoying it. We have listeners all over the world, from Australia to Europe to, all over Canada, all over the United States. It's pretty cool.
For people interested in getting into the business, Chopper encourages aspiring television professionals to get as close to the action as they can and begin establishing connections.
Everybody that's in this business was exactly in the situation that you're in right now. And all it takes is, and everybody's willing and open to do that. So I would say, it takes nothing to send an email and say, hey, this is who I am. This is what I want to do. Would it be okay? Would you be kind enough to let me just come and watch behind the scenes one night? And then as soon as you've done that, you make connections, right? And those are people that you can reach out to, and you can ask advice again, or you can set it up again. It's a very small industry, and you just have to get through the door. You just have to break through the door, and it's probably easier than you think it is.
Ultimately, live productions are becoming more rare, but this is the world that brings Hemming the most satisfaction.
That's the great thing about live sports television. Is that it's really the last frontier of live TV. You watch the news at 5:30, you watch the news at 6 o'clock, 70% of that probably is on tape, coming back from a tape source playback, right? And I mean, I would say that most of the time, the only thing you're seeing live is the on-air talent read. But even some of those are pre-taped as well too. Sports is the only thing where it happens live, where you cannot make a mistake, because they're not going to go back and replay a down or replay a player at bat or replay an ice goal in hockey because the camera missed it. That's the great thing about my job, is that's the challenge every night, is that every night you have to be perfect. You can't make a mistake. Now, we all know that perfection is impossible. There's no such thing as the perfect show. And the day that you think you've worked on the perfect show, whatever event it is you're working on, that's the day you should probably look for another career, because there is no such thing as the perfect show. Although every night, every single night that you're working, you're aiming for that perfection. And that's the great thing about, that's the juice for my job. That's what gives me my, the adrenaline, is that, you have to be on, you have to be perfect. You can't show up and mail it in. It's not like working at the bank where you can go in, close your door if you don't want to talk to anybody, and leave at 4 o'clock. What we're all signing up for as a career is the exact opposite of that.
I will definitely be connecting with that guy on LinkedIn later. He is a great contact to have in the sport industry.
Hey, the more contacts, the better. Next up, our very own Emmanuel Tobe takes a deep dive to see how sports are faring after the initial shutdown. With so many of the seasons nearing their end, certain leagues had to adjust on the fly. And for some, the comeback wasn't easy.
On September 28th, the Tampa Bay Lightning defeated the Dallas Stars to win the Stanley Cup Finals. It was a moment of celebration for the Lightning, but to be honest, not a lot of people were around to watch it. The game averaged a 1.7 rating and it had 2.8 million viewers on NBC. This made the game the lowest rated and the least watched Stanley Cup clincher in at least 20 years. Now, there's been a lot of articles all around about sports ratings being historically down right now, the sports apocalypse. And if you look at the numbers, there might be a reason for concern. I mean, let's take Game 3 of the NBA Finals. It had 5.9 million viewers, making it the least watched NBA Finals game of all time. The previous record, well, that was held by Game 2 of this year's NBA Finals. NASCAR at Bristol was the least watched Bristol race since 2000, and that's including rainouts. The US Open was the least watched final round of the tournament since at least 1987. Simpler times. It's okay though, right? Because the NFL's back in here to save TV. Well, about that. If you go online, it's not hard to find thousands of articles talking about record low viewership, the end of the sports world, But to be honest, it's all about perspective when you look at ratings. Now let's talk about the NBA. Game 2 of the NBA Finals took place on a Friday. I like Fridays, you like Fridays. The NBA hates playing games on Fridays. In the last 100 NBA Finals games, only 4 of them have been played on a Friday night. That's just because the NBA just does not get a lot of viewership on those days. 3 of the last 4 Friday games were the least watched games of their final series. Game 3 took place on a Sunday, a better day, right? Well, except when you look at it was going up against the NFL. I mean, ultimately, the NBA Finals haven't gone up against this much competition since the OJ chase. These were not simpler times. But the amount of sports competition right now is just ridiculous. I mean, just last weekend, we had the NFL, the NBA Finals, the MLB playoffs, the WNBA Finals, NASCAR at Talladega, Premier League football, the French Open, college football. And then outside of the sports bubble, let's not forget about the small news story of the President of the United States getting diagnosed with COVID last weekend that dominated the primetime news cycle. I mean, I don't know what kind of setup y'all have at home, but I got one TV in my living room where I watch stuff, and I got a Twitter where I follow stuff. You should follow me. But it doesn't matter what league you are, you're going to be impacted by competition because people can only watch and follow so much stuff at one time. I mean, even the top dog NFL, who last fall, they accounted for 47 of the top 50 most watched shows on TV, even they have to deal with competition. I mean, historically, NFL viewership has declined in each of the past 6 presidential election years. I mean, in fact, the league office has even told teams not to worry about the lower ratings because at the end of the day, as long as they're on TV, the money's not really going anywhere. Fox is reportedly willing to spend up to $2 billion a year to keep the rights of NFL games. That's nearly double the amount they spend a year right now, despite those horrendous ratings that people keep talking about. I mean, I started this piece earlier talking about the NHL record low Stanley Cup. But a report has recently come out that ESPN, CBS, and Fox Sports may be interested in making an offer for NHL's TV rights. Contrary to popular belief and lots of those eye-grabbing headlines, the big leagues are not going anywhere. Now, will they look different in the future? Absolutely. But right now, it's not the end of the sports world. I mean, to be honest, look how resilient the XFL has been. It's probably going to be even harder for the league to hit rock bottom now that you got Dwayne Johnson ready to people's elbow everyone who gets in the way. I mean, overall, there's a lot going on right now. But just by looking at the falling ratings, people are missing out on the big picture. We've got sports back, and they are working. Speaking of that, I actually have to go. I think there's a game on right now. Back to you, Taylor.
Thanks, Emmanuel, and we hope all the leagues can get back on track.
Don't go anywhere just yet. When we come back, we hear from Dr. Tony Weaver and give you a sneak peek of what is to come the rest of this season of Elon Phoenix Weekly. We'll be right back. Just recently, I had the opportunity of sitting down with Dr. Tony Weaver, a professor here at the Sport Management Department at Elon. Now, Dr. Weaver has seen a lot of different things in the sport industry, but nothing quite like what we're seeing today. Let's hear some of his reactions to the initial shutdown of sports.
I would guess, like a lot of other people, and certainly, I guess, especially people around my age or in my generation, we've lived through a lot of things that were obviously devastating, but even through those things, sport continued. So I'll be honest with you, I would probably say I was in denial that sport was going to get shut down. I'll probably never forget the I kind of learned about all of this was through the conference basketball tournaments. My first reaction was, that can't be, or maybe they're going to do it for a day, or maybe they're, have to just kind of pause for a second, but we'll be back at it. And I know even when the conference tournaments started shutting down and the ACC shut down and Big East shut down, this idea that we're going to do this for a couple of weeks and then somehow we're going to play the NCAA Division I championships, and being in the industry, knowing what's at stake financially, what's at stake for a student athlete and how hard they've worked, for people to make a decision that we had to stop doing this, you kind of knew that we were in trouble. In addition to all the other things that were going on in life, obviously we sent students home, businesses were shutting down, the financial industry was shutting down. You know, the world was shutting down. You knew that it was getting serious. On the positive silver lining, the idea that that we have other things to pay attention to that are certainly a lot more important than sport certainly came to the forefront. And I think maybe even some of us, including myself, started to appreciate the idea of enjoying some of these competitions, even if it's not exactly the way we normally enjoy them.
Thank you, Dr. Weaver, and we look forward to seeing you back here on campus soon.
Next show, more new exclusive content and all the best from Elon Athletics.
If you missed anything or want to see any packages again, check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/Elon Phoenix Weekly. Head to elonphoenix.com to learn more about upcoming games and exciting successes for Elon Athletics, and be sure to follow us on our socials at Elon Phoenix Weekly.
Thanks so much for tuning in. That's Taylor Schmidt. I'm Taylor Lundquist. Have a good night.